It was my first night shift at the small gas station in the Norwegian countryside. The wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows of the old building. I had just moved to this quiet, isolated area and was still getting used to the eerie feeling that came with the long, dark nights. The gas station was in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but miles of empty roads and dense forest surrounding it. The nearest town was hours away. The night started like any other. It was around midnight when the first car pulled up. A man in his 40s, wearing a thick winter coat, came inside. He didn't say much, just asked for a full tank of gas, and paid in cash. I couldn't shake the feeling that something about him was off, but I brushed it aside. He quickly left after filling up, and I went back to my work, wiping down counters and keeping the station clean. About an hour later, the phone rang. I wasn't accepting any calls at this hour, and it startled me. I reached for the receiver, expecting it to be a wrong number of a delivery service confirming a shipment. But when I picked up, there was nothing but silence. I waited, assuming the person on the other end would speak. But there was nothing. Then a faint breathing sound came through the line. Soft, labored, like someone was struggling to breathe. It sent a chill down my spine. I hesitated for a moment before calling out, "Hello? Is someone there?" The breathing stopped, replaced by a low whisper, "Help me." I froze. The voice was weak, almost pleading. It sounded distant, as if the person was calling from far away, maybe from the woods or somewhere deep in the night. I tried to respond, but my throat felt dry, and my words barely escaped. "Who is this? Are you in trouble?" I asked, my voice shaky. The only answer was a soft sob, followed by more frantic breathing. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, my heart racing. I had no idea who that was or where the call had come from. My mind raced. Could it have been someone playing a cruel prank? Maybe someone lost in the woods? I wasn't sure, but the whole thing felt wrong. Minutes later, I heard something outside. I peeked through the window, but it was so dark I could barely make out anything. The gas station was still empty, but I felt like I wasn't alone. I thought I saw a shadow move near the edge of the forest, just outside the reach of the station's light. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease and went back to cleaning, but as the clock ticked on, I couldn't escape the strange feeling that I was being watched. Then the phone rang again. This time my hand shook as I picked it up. The voice on the other end was different. It was soft but sharp, like someone whispering through a clenched teeth. "You are going to find me," the voice said. I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The voice didn't answer. Instead, I heard the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving through snow, crunching with each step. They were getting closer. I pressed the phone to my ear, my heart pounding as the footsteps grew louder, closer. Then there was a loud crash from the outside, like something had been thrown against the station's window. I jerked back, startled. The line went silent. I rushed outside, my pulse racing, but there was nothing, just the cold wind and empty night. No signs of anyone, no footprints, nothing. The only things I found was a strange dark stain near the window. It looked like a fresh blood. I ran back inside, locking the door behind me. The phone call hadn't been a prank. Whatever it was, whoever had called was out there. I knew that now. The phone never rang again that night. The rest of my shift was spent in fear, staring out the windows, convinced someone was lurking just beyond the lights. But no one ever showed up. When my shift ended, I left the station quickly, trying to shake the terrifying feeling that lingered. I never did find out who had called that night, or what had happened outside, but sometimes, late at night, when I'm home alone, the phone rings. And when I picked it up, all I hear is the same voice whispering in the dark. You are going to find me. It was my usual night shift at this small gas station on the outskirts of Berlin. The night was cold and the wind howled through the empty streets. I was used to quiet. After all, this was a quiet part of the city. Not many customers stopped by this late, especially on a Wednesday night. Most people were already tucked in, heading to sleep for work the next morning. Around the midnight, a car pulled up to the pump. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I saw him, the man who got out of the car. He looked strange, not in a way that you could pinpoint, but there was something unsettling about him. He wore a long coat, the kind you don't usually see anymore, with a wide brimmed hat that hid most of his face. His figure was tall, almost too tall, like he didn't quite fit the space he was in. He didn't make any noise as he walked toward the door. He didn't even seem to acknowledge my presence when I called out a greeting, which struck me as odd. Most people at least nod or say hello, but he just continued, walking with a purposeful stride that felt too deliberate. As I watched him approach, I felt a chill down my spine. I had no idea why, but something about him didn't seem right. Maybe it was his eyes, which I finally caught a glimpse of as he passed by the pump. They were completely black, pitch black, with no whites at all. I could feel my heart start to race as a sudden wave of dread swept over me. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that I was just tired and imagining things. I turned to grab a pack of cigarettes from the counter, trying to focus on something else. But then the man spoke. His voice was deep, cold and smooth. "Phil," he said. I turned, startled. He had filled his tank while I wasn't looking. When had that happened? The pump nozzle was hanging, dripping slowly. His car was a dark sedan, and it looked too new to be parked in this old gas station. I stepped over the pump, ready to help him with the payment. But when I reached the counter, he was already gone, just like that, vanished. The door had shut behind him, but there was no sound of footsteps as he left, no sound of a car starting. Confused, I rushed to the door and looked out. His car was still parked at the pump, but there was no sign of the man. The parking lot was completely empty. I stood there for a long moment, trying to make a sense of what had just happened. Maybe he went to the bathroom, I thought. But then I realized the bathroom was locked from the inside. I ran outside to check. Nothing. The air was still. I could see my breath in the cold, but the night was eerily quiet. No sounds, no movement. The car sat there, dark and lifeless. I walked around the pump, checking the area. I even looked inside the car, but there was no trace of the man, no bags, no personal belongings, nothing. It was like he had never been there at all. My skin crawled as I walked back to the station, my pulse racing. Was I imagining it? I couldn't stop thinking about his eyes, the blackness. I looked at the security cameras, hoping to find something that would explain it. The footage from the camera was clear, showing him getting out of the car, but the moment he walked past the pump, it paused. The footage became all static, like the camera couldn't handle his presence. Suddenly, I heard it, a soft tapping sound, like something knocking lightly on the window. I froze. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I turned around slowly. There, standing by the window, was the man. He was looking at me through the glass, but this time his face was clearer. His eyes were completely empty, nothing but a void. His mouth moved but no words came out. I backed away from the window. My hands shaking, I grabbed the phone to call the police. But just as dialed, the lights flickered, the power went out. I was plunged into the complete darkness. And then the voice came again, not from the window, but from behind me, low, calm and cold. You shouldn't have looked. I spun around, but the man wasn't there. The lights came back on seconds later, and I rushed outside to find the car still there, but the man was gone. I never saw him again. The car was gone the next morning, but the memory of that night, his black eyes, his voice, and the terror that filled me still haunts me. I don't work the midnight shift anymore. I haven't been able to since that night. The gas station has been quiet, but every now and then I hear a soft tap at the window, just once, and then it's gone. It was late, much later than usual for a gas station shift, but the small station on the outskirts of Rome had always been quiet. There were fewer customers at night, and I spent most of my time cleaning or reading, keeping busy while the hours dragged on. It was just me and the dark road outside. The night air was cold, and the shadows felt thick around the station, like they were closing in on me. At around 2 a.m., a car pulled up. It was an old, battered sedan, the kind you rarely see these days, with a dark blue color that seemed almost black under the dim street lights. The engine idled loudly, and I couldn't help but notice how odd it was for a car to be out there at this hour. It was too quiet, too still for anyone to be on the road, especially with no other cars around. A man got out. He looked tired, disheveled. His clothes were torn at the edge, and his face looked like had been on the road for far too long. He didn't seem to acknowledge me at first. He just walked toward the pump, staring at the ground. I called out, asking if he needed anything, but he didn't respond. His silence was unsettling. I walked out of the booth and went to the pump, ready to help him with the fill. But when I got close, I realized something was wrong. The man was standing very still, staring down at the ground. He had a nervous, almost frantic energy about him, but he didn't move, didn't seem to even notice I was there. I asked him again if he wanted help, but this time he looked up at me slowly. His eyes were wide, unblinking, like he hadn't slept in days. His skin was pale, almost sickly, and his breath was shallow. But when he spoke, his voice was calm, too calm. "I don't need anything," he said, his voice too soft for someone in his condition. "I just need to rest." I told him that the station was closing soon, but he didn't seem to care. He walked past me, heading for the small convenience store in the back. I followed him inside, just to make sure everything was alright. As I walked into the store, I heard a strange noise. It was soft at first, like a low hum, but it quickly grew louder. It was coming from outside, from the car. It was a high-pitched screeching sound, like metal on metal, scraping and grinding. I rushed to the window to look outside, and what I saw made my heart freeze. The car was rocking violently, as though something inside was trying to break free. The noise was deafening now, almost unbearable. But the strangest thing was that there was no one in the car. The one who had walked in just a minute ago was nowhere to be seen. The car rocked harder and harder, and the screeching intensified, turning into a sound like someone was screaming from inside the vehicle. I bolted outside, my mind racing. The car door was locked, but the noise, it sounded like a human scream, trapped and desperate, coming from the inside of the vehicle. I could hear it now, clear as a day. It was a terrible scream, and I could feel my blood run cold. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. I ran to the back, looking for something to break the window. But when I turned around, the car suddenly went quiet. Everything was silent. The air felt heavy, suffocating. Then, without warning, the car's lights blinked on, and the engine roared to life. But it was the sound of the engine that sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just a car starting. The sound was distorted, as if something was wrong with the engine itself. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the lot, and the car began to move. Slowly, it backed away from the pump, as if someone invisible was driving it. I froze, my heart pounded in my chest. The car started driving off, its headlights cutting through the night. But just before it turned the corner, I saw something, just a glimpse. The man was sitting in the passenger seat, his face pale and twisted in terror, his eyes wide open but lifeless. His mouth was open as though he was screaming, but no sound came out. Then the car sped away, vanishing into the night. I stood there for a long time, my hands trembling, unable to process what had just happened. I checked the parking lot and the station. Nothing. No sign of the man. The car was gone. I was alone again. The rest of the night passed in the haze. I couldn't stop thinking about the car, the screams, the man's empty eyes. When my shift ended, I packed up quickly, eager to leave. As I walked out of the station, I saw something on the ground near the pump where the car had been. It was a small crumpled note. I picked it up and unfolded it. It read, "I didn't want to leave. They took me." To this day, I don't know what was happened that night, but I'll never forget the sound of the car's scream, and I'll never work a late shift at the gas station again.